My name is Marcus, I'm 27 years old, and I never thought a single bank transaction could destroy my family. When I saw that $6,218 charge on my credit card statement, my stomach dropped. A designer bag I never bought. A signature I never signed. My sister's guilty eyes when I confronted her. But nothing could prepare me for my mother's reaction or the devastating family secrets that would surface afterward. Trust can be shattered in an instant, but the cracks were there all along, waiting to break open. Before I get into how my family fell apart, let me know where you're watching from. Give this video a like and subscribe if you've ever had someone close to you betray your trust. I come from what I always thought was a close-knit family. My parents, Robert and Diana, worked hard their entire lives to give my younger sister Bethany and me a stable home. Dad was a construction foreman who left the house before sunrise and came home with his boots caked in mud. Mom worked as an office administrator at the local high school, where she could keep the same hours as us kids. They weren't wealthy by any means, but they made sure we never went without the necessities. Growing up in our modest 3-bedroom house in suburban Pennsylvania, I learned the value of money early on. I started mowing lawns at 12, bagging groceries at 16, and working my way through college with a mix of scholarships, loans, and part-time jobs. I became the first person in my family to graduate from college, earning my degree in computer science. My parents beamed with pride at my graduation, taking more photos than my phone could store. After landing a stable job as an IT consultant at a mid-sized firm, I focused on building my financial foundation. I lived frugally, paid my student loans religiously, and slowly built an excellent credit score. By 27, I had a comfortable emergency fund, a 401k with employer matching, and 2 credit cards I paid off monthly. Financial responsibility was my way of honoring my parents' sacrifices. My sister Bethany and I used to be close. 4.5 years younger than me, she'd follow me around as a kid, wanting to play video games or have me teach her how to ride a bike. I protected her from neighborhood bullies and helped her with math homework. But something changed during her late teens. While I was grinding through college classes and working late shifts, Bethany became increasingly obsessed with projecting an image of luxury. Her Instagram feed transformed from typical teenage selfies to carefully curated lifestyle photos. She'd pose with expensive coffee drinks, wear clothes with visible designer logos, and talk endlessly about celebrities and influencers. Our conversations dwindled to surface-level small talk at family gatherings. When I'd try to connect more deeply, she'd become defensive or disinterested. I noticed a shift in our family dynamics, too. My parents, especially Mom, seemed to favor Bethany more as time passed. While they praised my steady career and financial responsibility, they also enabled Bethany's growing materialistic tendencies. Mom would defend Bethany's impulsive purchases, saying things like, "She works hard at that retail job," or "She's young, let her enjoy life." Dad would shake his head but rarely contradict Mom on these matters. I lived alone in a 1-bedroom apartment about 20 minutes from my parents' house. Nothing fancy, but it was clean, in a safe neighborhood, and the rent didn't stretch my budget. That Thursday morning started like any other. I woke up at 6, went for a quick 3-mile run, showered, and made a protein shake and toast for breakfast. Before heading to work, I sat down at my small kitchen table to check my email and pay a few bills. That's when I saw it. My credit card statement had arrived, and while scanning the transactions, an enormous charge jumped out at me, $6,218.53 from Luxe Designer Boutique. My heart started racing. I hadn't made any purchase remotely close to that amount. I scrolled through my recent transactions, thinking there must be some mistake. But there it was, dated just 4 days earlier. My mind immediately went to identity theft. I'd heard horror stories about criminals draining accounts and destroying credit scores. But something felt off about this particular charge. It wasn't an online purchase or something bought in another state. The store was local, at the upscale mall across town, a place I rarely visited but knew Bethany frequented regularly. An uncomfortable thought crept into my mind, but I pushed it away. No, my own sister wouldn't steal from me. We might have grown apart, but family doesn't do that to each other. I tried to remember if I'd loaned her my card recently, or if she could have somehow accessed my wallet. Nothing came to mind. I felt a knot forming in my stomach as suspicion began to take root. With shaking hands, I called my credit card company's fraud department. After navigating through the automated system, I finally reached a representative named Michael. "I'm seeing a charge on my account that I didn't make," I explained, trying to keep my voice steady. "It's for over $6,000. "I understand, sir." "Can you tell me which transaction you're disputing?" Michael asked in a practiced, professional tone. "It's from Luxe Designer Boutique for $6,218.53 on Monday." I heard keyboard clicking as Michael reviewed the transaction. "I see that charge. It appears to have been an in-store purchase where the physical card was present and a signature was provided." My mouth went dry. "That's impossible. My card has been in my wallet the entire time." "Let me check some additional details," Michael said. After a moment, he continued. "The purchase was made at the Westfield Mall location at approximately 3:45 p.m. Does anyone else have access to your card, Mr. Wells?" The question hung in the air. I thought about Bethany again. She had been over to my apartment the weekend before the charge, claiming she needed help with her laptop. I remembered stepping away to take a phone call, leaving her alone in my living room for about 15 minutes. My wallet had been on the kitchen counter. I'm not sure," I replied honestly. "Can you tell me what was purchased?" "The item is listed as a classic quilted handbag from their premium collection. A designer handbag. Bethany had been posting about wanting one for months. The coincidence was too strong to ignore. What information would I need to provide to see security footage from the store?" I asked. "That would require filing a police report for fraud and having the authorities request it," Michael explained. "We can flag this as a disputed charge while the investigation proceeds." "Would you like to do that?" I hesitated. Filing a fraud claim would mean potentially involving the police. If my suspicions were correct, that could mean serious legal consequences for Bethany. But if I was wrong, can I call the store directly first? I want to gather some information before filing an official dispute. "Certainly. I can provide you with the store's contact information. Just keep in mind that our fraud protection timeframe is limited, so you'll want to act quickly." After ending the call with the credit card company, I searched for the store's phone number and called immediately. A woman with a polished voice answered, "Luxe Designer Boutique. How may I assist you today?" "Hi, my name is Marcus Wells. I'm calling about a purchase made with my credit card at your store on Monday afternoon. I believe it may have been fraudulent." "I'm sorry to hear that, sir. Our security protocols are quite strict for high-value purchases. All transactions require ID verification along with the credit card. That's what concerns me. I believe someone may have used my card without permission. Would you be able to tell me anything about the person who made the purchase?" "It was for a classic quilted handbag." The sales associate hesitated. "I can't provide specific customer information without proper authorization. However, I can confirm that the purchase you're referring to was made by a young woman who presented the physical card and signed for it." My heart sank. Was she about 5'4"? Blonde hair with highlights, probably wearing designer sunglasses? "Sir, that does sound like the customer. If you believe fraud has occurred, I recommend filing a police report. Our security footage is available to law enforcement with proper documentation." I thanked her and hung up, feeling sick to my stomach. The description matched Bethany perfectly. The evidence was mounting, but I still couldn't bring myself to fully accept that my sister had stolen from me. I sat at my kitchen table, torn about what to do next. Confronting Bethany directly might give her a chance to cover her tracks or create a convincing lie. But going straight to my parents, or the police without talking to her first felt extreme. After an hour of internal debate, I decided the best approach was to present the evidence to my entire family at once. I texted my mom, "Are you and Dad home for dinner tonight? I need to talk to everyone about something important." She replied almost immediately, "Yes, we'll be here." "Everything okay?" "Bethany's coming over too." "Perfect timing." "Everything's fine. Just need to discuss something." "See you at 6. I called in sick to work, unable to focus on anything but the upcoming confrontation. Throughout the day, I gathered all the evidence I could. Screenshots of my credit card statement, notes from my conversation with the credit card company and store, and photos of my credit card to prove it had been in my possession. As evening approached, I got in my car and began the drive to my parents' house. The 20-minute trip felt both too short and endless. I rehearsed what I would say, trying to find words that wouldn't sound accusatory but would still make the situation clear. My palms were sweaty on the steering wheel, and I kept taking deep breaths to calm my racing heart. Pulling into the driveway of my childhood home, I noticed Bethany's car already parked on the street. The modest two-story house looked the same as always, Dad's well-maintained lawn, Mom's flower beds flanking the front walk, the basketball hoop above the garage where I'd spent countless hours practicing. But tonight, it didn't feel like the safe haven it once was. I sat in my car for a few minutes, gathering courage. Through the dining room window, I could see my family already seated at the table. Dad was passing a dish to Mom. Bethany was looking at her phone, all of them unaware of the bomb I was about to drop. With a deep breath, I grabbed my phone with the evidence and headed inside. "There he is!" Mom called as I walked in, her smile warm and welcoming. "We were just about to start without you." Dad nodded in greeting. "Everything okay, son?" "Your mom said you needed to talk about something." Bethany barely looked up from her phone, offering a distracted "hey," before returning to whatever had captured her attention. I took my usual seat at the table, the smell of Mom's pot roast filling the air. Under normal circumstances, I would have dug in immediately, complimenting Mom on her cooking. Tonight, my appetite was non-existent. As everyone began eating and making small talk about their day, I sat silently, pushing food around my plate. The casual conversation continued for several minutes until Mom finally noticed my unusual behavior. "Marcus, you've barely touched your food. What's going on? You said you needed to talk to us about something?" All eyes turned to me. I looked directly at Bethany, who was finally paying attention, a fork of mashed potatoes halfway to her mouth. Our eyes met briefly before she looked away. The moment of truth had arrived. "I discovered something disturbing on my credit card statement today," I began, my voice steadier than I expected. "A charge for over $6,000 that I didn't make." "Oh no," Mom gasped, her hand going to her chest. "Identity theft? You hear about that happening all the time now." Dad put down his fork, his brow furrowing with concern. "Did you call the credit card company? Report it as fraud?" "I did call them," I said, not taking my eyes off Bethany, who had suddenly become very interested in her plate. "They told me it was an in-store purchase. The physical card was present, and someone signed my name." "That's strange," Dad said. "You haven't lost your card?" "No, it's been in my wallet the whole time." I pulled out my phone and opened the screenshot of my statement. The purchase was for a designer handbag at Luxe Designer Boutique at Westfield Mall. Made on Monday afternoon around 3:45. I placed my phone on the table, screen visible to everyone. Mom and Dad leaned forward to look at it. Bethany remained perfectly still, not even glancing at the phone. "I called the store," I continued. "They confirmed that a young woman made the purchase. She had my physical card and ID wasn't checked because the signature matched closely enough." The silence around the table was deafening. Dad looked confused, Mom concerned. but neither of them seemed to be connecting the dots I was laying out. I decided to be more direct. Bethany was at my apartment last Sunday. My wallet was on the counter while I took a phone call in the bedroom. I turned to face my sister directly. The next day, someone who matches your description used my card to buy a $6,000 handbag. Bethany's head snapped up, her eyes wide with what looked like panic before quickly shifting to outrage. Are you accusing me of stealing your credit card? Are you serious right now? I'm not accusing you, I said calmly. I'm stating facts and asking for an explanation. This is insane. Bethany pushed back from the table, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. I can't believe you would think I'd do something like that. Mom immediately reached for Bethany's arm. Honey, calm down. I'm sure there's a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding? I echoed, disbelief creeping into my voice. Mom, the evidence is pretty clear. Evidence? Bethany scoffed, her voice rising. You have no evidence. Just because I was at your apartment doesn't mean I took anything. Dad cleared his throat uncomfortably. Marcus, that's a serious accusation against your sister. Are you absolutely sure about this? I'm sure about what I found on my statement. I'm sure about what the store told me. I scrolled through my phone and pulled up Bethany's Instagram page. And I'm pretty sure about this. I turned the phone toward them, showing Bethany's most recent post from 2 days ago, a carefully arranged photo of her new designer bag, the exact model that had been purchased with my card. The caption read, "Finally mine. Dreams do come true. #blessed #luxury life." The color drained from Bethany's face before quickly being replaced by an angry flush. That doesn't prove anything. It was a gift. A gift? I asked incredulously. From who? From a friend. Not that it's any of your business. Which friend spends over $6,000 on a gift for you? And by coincidence, it's charged to my credit card? Mom, who had been examining the Instagram post, suddenly handed the phone back to me with unexpected force. Marcus, I think you've made a mistake. Bethany wouldn't do this. I stared at her in disbelief. Mom, look at the evidence. The timing, the description from the store, the bag that mysteriously appeared in her possession. Evidence? Mom's voice took on a defensive edge I rarely heard. All I see is circumstantial coincidences and you jumping to conclusions. Bethany said it was a gift. From who? I pressed again, looking at my sister. Give me a name. Let's call them right now to verify. Bethany's eyes darted around the room. It's personal. I don't have to explain my relationships to you. Dad shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Bethany, if someone gave you such an expensive gift, that's something we should know about. For a moment, I thought Dad was finally seeing through the deception. But Mom cut in before Bethany had to answer. Why are you both ganging up on her? Marcus comes in here throwing wild accusations, and now you're interrogating her too? Mom's voice grew louder with each word. Bethany has a job. She has friends. Maybe she saved up for the bag. Mom, it's the exact same bag, purchased at the exact store where my card was used, the day after Bethany was alone with my wallet, I said, struggling to keep my voice level. And she posted it just after the purchase. The price of that bag is more than she makes in 2 months. So what, you're monitoring her salary now too? Mom snapped. Maybe she got a bonus. Maybe she's been saving for a long time. For a $6,000 bag? Be realistic. Bethany suddenly burst into tears, burying her face in her hands. You've always been jealous of me. Just because you live like some boring accountant doesn't mean I have to. You can't stand that I might have nice things or successful friends. Mom immediately wrapped an arm around Bethany's shoulders. It's okay, sweetie. You don't have to explain yourself. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Mom, this isn't about jealousy or lifestyle. This is about theft. My credit card. My money. Maybe you misplaced the card, Mom suggested, her tone dismissive. Or forgot you loaned it to her. Have you considered that? I never loaned her my card. Ever. My frustration was mounting. Dad, you're being awfully quiet. What do you think about all this? Dad looked torn, his eyes moving between me, Mom, and Bethany. I think we need to get all the facts before jumping to conclusions. The facts are right in front of you. I stood up, pointing at my phone. The charge, the timing, the bag. What more do you need? Bethany continued sobbing into Mom's shoulder, playing the victim perfectly. Between sobs, she managed to say, he's always tried to make me look bad, because he's jealous that you love me more. That ridiculous statement should have been immediately shut down by my parents. Instead, Mom stroked Bethany's hair and glared at me. See what you've done? Are you happy now? Happy? Are you kidding me? I was nearly shouting now. I've been stolen from by my own sister. And you're defending her? You have no proof, Mom yelled back. The proof is on her shoulder in her Instagram posts. The proof is on my credit card statement. That's enough. Mom stood up so forcefully her chair fell backward. Her face was red with anger. I will not have you attacking your sister like this in our home. If you can't be civil and accept that you might be wrong, then you can leave. I looked to Dad for support, but he just sat there, staring at his plate, unwilling to take a side. His silence felt like a betrayal almost as deep as Bethany's theft. I'm filing a police report, I said quietly, the decision crystallizing in that moment. They can subpoena the security footage from the store. Then we'll have definitive proof. Bethany's crying suddenly intensified, and Mom's face contorted with rage. You would put your own sister through a police investigation? Over a misunderstanding? It's not a misunderstanding. It's theft. Get out! Mom screamed, pointing at the door. Right now! Get out of this house until you come to your senses. The command hit me like a physical blow. In all my life, through teenage rebellions and occasional family disagreements, my mother had never told me to leave. I looked at Dad again, silently pleading for him to say something, anything. But he remained silent, his expression pained but passive. Fine, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I'll go. But this doesn't change what happened. As I picked up my phone and headed for the door, I heard Bethany's crying transform into quiet hiccups. I turned back one last time to see her watching me leave, and for just a moment I caught something in her expression, not remorse or shame, but calculation. In that instant, I knew with absolute certainty that she was guilty. The drive home was a blur. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. Tears threatened to spill. But I held them back through sheer force of will. My family had chosen Bethany's lies over my truth. My own mother had thrown me out rather than consider the possibility that her daughter had committed a crime. By the time I reached my apartment, my shock had hardened into resolve. Tomorrow morning, I would file that police report, regardless of the family fallout. If my family couldn't face the truth, perhaps they would have to hear it from the authorities instead. The next morning, I walked into the police station with a manila folder containing printed copies of my credit card statement, screenshots of Bethany's Instagram posts, and detailed notes from my conversations with the credit card company and the store. The lobby was brightly lit and smelled of industrial cleaner. With plastic chairs lined against the wall and a bulletproof glass window separating visitors from the desk officer. After explaining my situation briefly, I was directed to an officer named Detective Laura Simmons. She was a middle-aged woman with short gray hair and reading glasses perched on the end of her nose. Her office was small but organized, with family photos on her desk and case files stacked neatly in a corner. So you believe your sister stole your credit card and made an unauthorized purchase? She summarized after I'd explained everything. Her tone wasn't dismissive, but it wasn't particularly sympathetic either. just matter of fact. Yes. I have all the evidence here. I handed her my folder. She reviewed the documents methodically, occasionally making notes. Family fraud cases are complicated, Mr. Wells. People are often reluctant to press charges against relatives. I understand that. But I can't just let this go. The amount puts this in felony territory, she explained. If we find sufficient evidence, your sister could face serious charges. Are you prepared for that? The question gave me pause. A felony charge could impact Bethany's entire future, her ability to get jobs, housing, loans. But then I remembered her calculating look as I left my parents' house, and my resolve strengthened. I want to proceed, I said firmly. She needs to face consequences for her actions. Detective Simmons nodded. We'll contact the store and request their security footage. I'll also need to interview your sister. The investigation could take a few weeks. In the meantime, I suggest you secure all your financial information and consider placing a fraud alert on your credit reports. As I left the police station, my phone buzzed with a text from my mother. I hope you're proud of yourself. Bethany is devastated. If you file charges against your own sister, don't bother coming to family gatherings anymore. The message hit me like a punch to the gut. Not a word about my feelings, my financial loss, or the betrayal I'd experienced. Just a threat of further exclusion if I didn't drop the whole thing. A few minutes later, a text from my father arrived. Son, please reconsider this police business. We can work this out as a family. Think about what this could do to Bethany's future. His message stung even more than Mom's. Dad had always taught me about personal responsibility and facing consequences. Now he was asking me to sweep a serious crime under the rug, for family's sake. The worst messages came from Bethany herself. Throughout the day, she alternated between playing the victim. I can't believe you're doing this to me. I thought you loved me. Denying everything, I never took your stupid card. You're just trying to ruin my life because you're jealous, and making threats if you go through with this. I'll tell everyone about the time you got drunk in college and crashed your friend's car. How would your precious job like to hear about that? Her social media campaign was equally aggressive. Without naming me directly, she posted vague statements about toxic family members and being attacked for having nice things. Her followers responded with supportive comments, having no idea of the real situation. She was controlling the narrative, painting herself as the victim and me as the villain. The next few weeks were some of the loneliest of my life. I went to work, came home, and interacted with as few people as possible. My performance at work suffered as I struggled to concentrate. My supervisor, Jim, called me into his office after I missed a deadline for a client project. Everything okay, Marcus? He asked, concern evident in his voice. This isn't like you. Just some family issues. I replied vaguely. I'll get back on track. If you need some time off or someone to talk to, let me know, Jim offered. We value you here, and we want to make sure you're doing all right. His kindness nearly broke my composure. I thanked him and promised to catch up on my work, but declined to share details. As the days passed, I found myself questioning my actions. Was I overreacting? Should I have handled things differently? Maybe I could have spoken to Bethany privately instead of confronting her in front of our parents. Maybe I should have given her a chance to repay the money without involving the police. These doubts might have overwhelmed me if not for my friend Ryan. He was one of the few people I confided in about the situation, and his response was unequivocal. Your sister stole from you, man. That's not a misunderstanding or a mistake, it's a crime. And your parents are enabling her behavior. You did the right thing. Ryan's support kept me grounded during those 3 weeks of near-total family isolation. My mother didn't call once. My father sent occasional brief texts asking me to reconsider, but never acknowledged that Bethany might actually be guilty. Extended family members began taking sides, most of them believing Bethany's version of events without ever hearing mine. I made several attempts to reason with my parents via text, explaining the evidence calmly and asking them to at least consider the possibility that Bethany had taken my card. My mother either didn't respond or replied with variations of, "You need to apologize to your sister." My father's responses were slightly more measured but equally frustrating. "We all make mistakes. Let's move past this." The message was clear: family unity was more important than truth or justice. The fact that I was the wrong party seemed irrelevant to them. Meanwhile, I watched from a distance as Bethany continued her social media performance. New posts showed her shopping, going to restaurants, and hanging out with friends, all activities that cost money she supposedly didn't have. The designer bag featured prominently in many photos, almost like she was flaunting it. Through it all, I maintained my resolve. If my family couldn't accept the truth, that was their problem. I wouldn't withdraw the police report or pretend nothing had happened just to make everyone comfortable. Sometimes standing for what's right means standing alone. I was sitting at my kitchen table on a Saturday morning, 3 weeks after filing the police report, when my phone rang. The caller ID showed Detective Simmons' number. "Mr. Wells," she said when I answered, her voice conveying that she had news. "We've completed our initial investigation. I think you'll want to come down to the station to discuss our findings." "Did you find something?" I asked, my heart racing. "Yes," she replied simply. "We have the security footage from the store. And we've spoken to your sister." A mix of validation and dread washed over me. Finally, the truth would come out, but at what cost to my family? The police station felt different this time, more ominous, more final. Detective Simmons met me in the lobby and led me to a small conference room rather than her office. A laptop was set up on the table, along with several folders of documents. "Thank you for coming in, Mr. Wells," she said, gesturing for me to take a seat. "As I mentioned on the phone, we've made significant progress in our investigation." She opened one of the folders and spread out several photographs. They were still images from security camera footage, showing Bethany clearly entering the luxe designer boutique, examining handbags with a sales associate, and finally at the register, pulling out a credit card and signing the receipt. The timestamps matched exactly with the transaction on my statement. "As you can see, we have clear visual confirmation that your sister was the one who used your credit card," Detective Simmons explained. "Additionally, the store provided us with the signed receipt." She showed me a copy of the receipt with a signature that was a passable imitation of mine. Not identical, but close enough that a busy sales clerk might not notice the difference. "We've also subpoenaed your sister's phone records and location data," she continued. "Her phone was at the mall at the exact time of the purchase, and at your apartment the day before, corroborating your timeline of events." I felt a hollow vindication seeing all the evidence laid out so clearly. "Did you speak with my sister about this?" Detective Simmons nodded. "We did. Initially, she denied everything. Claimed the bag was a gift from a friend. But when we presented her with the evidence, particularly the security footage, she admitted to taking your card and making the purchase." She paused, seeming to consider her next words carefully. "Mr. Wells, during our interview, some additional information came to light. This appears not to be an isolated incident." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" "Your sister admitted to several other instances of financial fraud and theft, though none as substantial as this one. Mostly smaller purchases using other people's information, returning items for cash, and similar schemes. This is the first time she's been caught." I sat back, stunned. Bethany wasn't just an impulsive sister who made one bad decision. She had a pattern of this behavior. "What happens now?" I asked. "That partly depends on you," Detective Simmons explained. "We have enough evidence to charge her with credit card fraud and identity theft. Given the amount, these are felony charges. However, as the victim, your cooperation and wishes will be taken into consideration." The weight of the decision pressed down on me. I wanted justice. But did I want my sister to have a criminal record that would follow her for life? I want her to face consequences, I said slowly. But I also want her to get help. Is there a way to ensure both? There are options, Detective Simmons nodded. First-time offenders sometimes qualify for diversion programs that include mandatory counseling, community service, and restitution instead of jail time. But she would need to take full responsibility for her actions. As we discussed the possibilities, my phone rang. It was my father, the first direct call I'd received from him since the confrontation. Detective Simmons, excuse me. I need to take this call. I stepped into the hallway to answer. Dad? Marcus. His voice sounded strained, almost broken. The police just left our house. They showed us everything. He paused, and I could hear him struggling to maintain composure. I owe you an apology, son. We should have listened to you. 3 weeks of isolation and doubt crumbled with those words. Is Mom there? I asked. She's not ready to talk yet. The hesitation in his voice told me more than his words. She's having a hard time accepting what Bethany did. But I believe you now, and I'm sorry I didn't stand up for you that night. I'm at the police station right now, I told him. We're discussing what happens next with Bethany. Please, Dad's voice cracked. I know what she did was wrong. Terribly wrong. But she's still your sister. Is there any way to resolve this without destroying her future? I'm trying to figure that out, I said honestly. Can you bring Bethany to the station? I think we all need to talk face to face. 2 hours later, we were seated around a larger conference table at the police station. My parents looked exhausted, with dark circles under their eyes and slumped shoulders. Dad made eye contact with me, offering a slight nod of support. Mom kept her gaze fixed on the table, her fingers nervously twisting her wedding ring. Bethany sat between them, her usual confident demeanor completely gone. She looked small and scared, occasionally wiping tears from her reddened eyes. The designer bag was conspicuously absent. Detective Simmons had agreed to give us some privacy to discuss the situation, though she made it clear that formal charges were pending. Before we discuss anything else, I began, looking directly at Bethany, I need to hear the truth from you. Not excuses, not justifications. The truth. Bethany lifted her head slowly, meeting my eyes for the first time. I took your credit card when I was at your apartment, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I saw it on the counter when you went to take that call. And I just took it. I knew which store I wanted to go to the next day. I practiced your signature beforehand. Mom made a small, pained sound but didn't interrupt. I'm sorry, Marcus. Bethany continued, tears streaming down her face. I know it doesn't fix anything, but I am truly sorry. Why? I asked the question that had been haunting me for weeks. Why would you steal from me? If you needed money, you could have asked. I might have said no to a $6,000 bag, but I would have helped you if you were in trouble. Bethany shook her head. It wasn't about needing the money. It was, she trailed off, looking ashamed. It was about wanting the bag and not wanting to wait. All my friends have designer things. My Instagram followers expect certain content. I felt like I deserved it. The shallow reasoning shocked me into silence. My sister had betrayed me. Not out of desperation or need, but for social media status and immediate gratification. The police say this isn't the first time, I finally said. That you've done similar things before. Bethany nodded miserably. Nothing this big. Usually just returning clothes after wearing them once. Or using Mom's credit card for small stuff without asking. Mom's head snapped up at this, her expression a mix of hurt and confusion. Detective Simmons explained the potential charges. I continued. They're serious, Bethany. Felonies. But there might be alternatives to a criminal record if you're willing to take responsibility, make restitution, and get counseling. I'll do anything, Bethany said quickly. I don't want to go to jail. It's not just about avoiding jail, I insisted. It's about understanding what you did and why it was wrong. It's about changing your behavior and making amends. Dad finally spoke up. We'll support whatever decision you make, Marcus. And we'll make sure Bethany follows through on her obligations. He glanced at Mom, who gave a reluctant nod of agreement. I want to press charges, I said firmly, watching Bethany's face crumple. But I continued. I'll recommend to the prosecutor that you be considered for a diversion program. You'll have to pay back every cent, do community service, attend counseling, and stay out of trouble. If you complete all the requirements, you might avoid a permanent record. The relief on everyone's faces was palpable. Even Mom seemed to soften slightly. Thank you, Bethany whispered. I don't deserve your mercy. No, you don't, I agreed. But that's what family is supposed to be about, holding each other accountable while still offering a chance for redemption. Something I wish everyone had remembered when I first brought this up. The pointed comment wasn't lost on my parents. Dad nodded in acknowledgement, while Mom finally raised her eyes to meet mine. She didn't speak, but her expression had shifted from denial to a dawning recognition of her role in enabling Bethany's behavior. As we prepared to leave the conference room and speak with Detective Simmons about next steps, I realized this was just the beginning of a long, difficult road for our family. The truth was finally out, but the real work of healing was only just beginning. We agreed to meet at my parents' house the following evening to have a more in-depth family discussion. Detective Simmons had outlined the legal process moving forward, and Bethany had been formally charged but released to our parents' custody with the understanding that she would cooperate fully with the diversion program requirements. The atmosphere in the living room was tense as we gathered. Mom had prepared coffee and cookies, her default response to any family crisis, but they sat untouched on the coffee table. Dad occupied his usual recliner, while Mom perched on the edge of the sofa next to Bethany. I took the armchair across from them, feeling like an outsider in the home where I grew up. I think we need to understand exactly what happened, I began, addressing Bethany directly. Not just with my credit card, but everything. Detective Simmons mentioned a pattern of behavior. Bethany nodded, her eyes downcast. Where should I start? The beginning, Dad suggested gently. When did all this start? Bethany took a deep breath. About 2 years ago. It started small, buying clothes, wearing them with the tags tucked in, then returning them for full refunds. Then I began using Mom's Amazon account without asking. Mom frowned. I did notice some purchases I couldn't remember making, but I thought I was just being forgetful. Then it escalated, Bethany continued. I took photos of friends' credit cards when they weren't looking. I memorized Mom's card details. I stole cash from Dad's wallet a few times. Dad's expression hardened, but he remained silent. The worst part, Bethany said, her voice breaking, is the debt. I have 3 maxed-out credit cards you don't know about. I'm over $35,000 in debt. The revelation hit the room like a thunderclap. Mom gasped, and Dad leaned forward in shock. 35,000? Dad repeated incredulously. How is that possible? Where did the money go? Clothes, shoes, bags, expensive restaurants, weekend trips, Bethany listed, each item more frivolous than the last. I needed content for Instagram. I was trying to build a following as an influencer, but you need to look the part. The sheer magnitude of her deception was staggering. But what came next shook me even more. Mom knew about some of it, Bethany added quietly. All eyes turned to our mother, whose face had gone pale. What does that mean, Diana? Dad asked. Using Mom's first name, something he only did when he was seriously upset. Mom shifted uncomfortably. I caught her using my credit card once. And I noticed when some money went missing from our account. But I thought it was just a phase. That she was struggling and too embarrassed to ask for help. And you didn't tell me? Dad's voice rose slightly, his usual calm demeanor cracking. I was trying to protect her, Mom defended weakly. And I didn't want you to worry. Protect her? I couldn't hold back my disbelief. You were enabling her. And what about protecting me when I came to you with evidence that she'd stolen from me? Where was your concern for the truth then? Mom flinched at my words but couldn't meet my eyes. I couldn't believe she would do something like that. Not something so deliberate and serious. So you assumed I was lying? Your own son? I didn't think you were lying, Mom countered. I thought you were mistaken. That there had to be another explanation. Even when the evidence was right in front of you? Dad intervened before Mom could respond. I think what's important now is that we understand the full scope of the problem. He turned to Bethany. You mentioned an addiction to shopping earlier. Is that what this is? Bethany nodded, tears streaming down her face. The therapist the court assigned me to says it's a combination of shopping addiction and social media validation. I get a rush when I buy something expensive. And then another one when people like my posts showing it off. Why didn't you come to us if you were struggling? I asked, genuinely wanting to understand. Because I wasn't struggling in the way you mean, Bethany admitted. I wasn't buying necessities or paying bills. I was buying things I wanted but didn't need. I knew you wouldn't approve or understand. And it was easier to steal than to hear no, Dad concluded sadly. A heavy silence fell over the room as we all processed the magnitude of Bethany's deception and the deeper family dynamics it revealed. My sister hadn't just stolen a credit card. She had been engaging in a pattern of dishonesty that had gone unchecked and even unconsciously encouraged. After several minutes, Dad turned to Mom. Diana, I need to understand why you kept this from me. We've been married for 30 years. We're supposed to be partners, especially when it comes to our children. Mom's eyes welled with tears. I thought I was handling it. I thought if I talked to her privately, showed her the right path, she'd change. And she hesitated. I didn't want you to be disappointed in her. You're always so proud of Marcus and his accomplishments. I wanted you to be proud of Bethany too. The revelation struck me like a physical blow. In Mom's mind, she had been protecting Bethany, not from consequences, but from Dad's disappointment and unfavorable comparisons to me. So you covered for her, Dad said, his voice tinged with hurt. You lied to me by omission. For years. I never thought it would go this far, Mom whispered. I never imagined she would steal from her own brother. But she did, I said firmly. And when I came to you with proof, you chose to believe her lies instead of my truth. You kicked me out of the house, Mom. I was wrong, Mom admitted, finally meeting my eyes. I was so wrong, Marcus. I've spent years trying to balance my attention between you two, always feeling like Bethany needed more support because she wasn't as naturally successful as you. But in trying to protect her, I enabled her worst behaviors and betrayed you. I don't know if you can forgive me for that. Her words should have felt vindicating, but they only left me hollow. The family dynamics I thought I understood had deeper, more troubling roots than I'd realized. My success had somehow contributed to my sister's sense of inadequacy, and my mother's overcorrection in Bethany's favor. Dad stood up suddenly. I need some air, he said. His voice tight with emotion. He walked out to the back porch, closing the door firmly behind him. The three of us sat in uncomfortable silence until Bethany spoke up. I've ruined everything. Haven't I? Our family will never be the same. You didn't ruin things alone, I said, surprising myself with the realization. Yes, you made terrible choices. But this family had problems long before you took my credit card. We just never talked about them. Mom nodded slowly, wiping tears from her cheeks. We created an environment where Bethany felt she needed material things to measure up, where honesty took a backseat to keeping up appearances, and where I chose peace over truth. That's on me and your father. Through the window, I could see Dad pacing on the porch, his shoulders hunched and his head down. The strong, steady man who had always been our family's rock looked lost and betrayed. I'm going to pay back every cent, Bethany promised, her voice stronger than before. Not just to you, Marcus. But all of it, the credit card debt, the money I took from Dad's wallet, everything. I've already listed the bag and other designer items for sale. It's not just about the money, I told her. It's about trust. That's going to take a lot longer to rebuild. I know, she whispered. But I want to try. I need to try. Mom reached for my hand across the coffee table. I hesitated before taking it, the hurt still fresh. We all need to try, she said. As a family. But first, we need to be honest with each other, completely honest, no matter how painful. I looked from my tearful mother to my remorseful sister to my father still processing his own sense of betrayal on the porch. The comfortable family narrative I'd grown up with had been shattered, revealing a more complex, flawed reality underneath. The road to healing would be long and difficult, with no guarantee of success. But as painful as this revelation had been, there was something clarifying about finally seeing the truth. We couldn't fix what we wouldn't acknowledge. And for the first time in years, maybe ever, our family was facing reality without filters or convenient lies. I stood up. I'm going to talk to Dad, I said. Then I think we should consider family therapy, not just individual counseling for Bethany. We all have work to do. As I walked toward the porch door, I felt the weight of old family patterns beginning to lift. The truth had been devastating, but it was also, finally, a chance for something real to grow in place of comfortable illusions. 3 months passed before we began to find a new normal as a family. Bethany's legal situation proceeded as Detective Simmons had outlined. Due to her cooperation, clean prior record, and my recommendation, she qualified for a diversion program, 18 months of probation, 200 hours of community service, mandatory counseling, and full restitution. She sold the designer bag immediately, though it fetched only about 70% of its original price. The remaining balance in her massive credit card debt loomed large. But she tackled it with unexpected determination. She took a second job on weekends, moved back in with our parents to save on rent, and worked with a credit counselor to create a realistic payment plan. My parents' marriage weathered a serious storm in the aftermath of our family revelations. Dad spent 2 nights at a hotel after learning about Mom's years of secrets and enabling behavior. For a while, I genuinely feared they might divorce after 3 decades together. The foundation of trust they built had been severely damaged. Your mother and I are in counseling, Dad told me during one of our now regular lunch meetups. We had started having lunch together every other week, just the 2 of us, something we'd never done when I was growing up. It's not easy, but we're working through it. 30 years is worth fighting for. My relationship with Dad strengthened considerably during this period. Without Mom's interference and with the truth finally exposed, we found a new level of honesty in our conversations. He apologized repeatedly for not standing up for me the night of the confrontation. I failed you as a father, he admitted during one particularly emotional lunch. I knew something wasn't right with Bethany's story, but I took the path of least resistance. I've been doing that for years with your mother's favoritism toward Bethany. It was easier to stay quiet than to create conflict. You're not staying quiet anymore, I pointed out. That counts for something. My relationship with Mom developed more slowly. Her realization that she had enabled Bethany's worst behaviors while dismissing my concerns had shaken her self-image as a good mother. Her apologies initially came with justifications. I was just trying to protect her, or I never thought she would go this far, but over time, they became more genuine. I don't expect you to forgive me right away, she said when we finally had a one-on-one conversation about 2 months after the truth came out. What I did was wrong, and it hurt you deeply. I just want you to know that I'm working on myself, trying to understand why I made those choices and how to be better. As for Bethany, her transformation was perhaps the most surprising. 2 months into therapy, she wrote me a letter, handwritten, not a text or email, that showed genuine introspection for perhaps the first time in her adult life. I've been thinking a lot about why I stole from you, she wrote. The therapist has helped me see that I've been comparing myself to you my whole life, always feeling like I was falling short. You were the smart one, the responsible one, the successful one. I wanted to have something that made me special too, and I thought material things and social media fame would do that. But all it did was turn me into someone I'm not proud of. I'm not asking for forgiveness yet. I haven't earned it. But I am asking for a chance to show you that I can change. I kept the letter on my desk and read it several times over the following weeks, trying to reconcile this new, reflective Bethany with the sister who had stolen from me and then tried to manipulate our family against me. The change seemed real, but trust would take much longer to rebuild. We began to establish new boundaries as a family. I was more careful about what I shared with them and when I made myself available. This wasn't punishment, it was self-protection and a recognition that healthy relationships require mutual respect. Family gatherings became less frequent but more meaningful. We abandoned the old pattern of superficial conversations and forced harmony in favor of more authentic interactions. Sometimes this meant uncomfortable discussions and occasional disagreements. But they no longer threatened to tear us apart. Mom and Dad stayed in marriage counseling, working through decades of communication problems. Bethany continued her individual therapy while making steady payments toward her debts. I found my own therapist to process the betrayal and examine my role in our family dynamics. About 3 months after everything came to light, we attempted our first family dinner since the night of the confrontation. It was at a neutral location, a restaurant rather than anyone's home, and we all arrived with a mixture of hope and apprehension. I wasn't sure this day would come, Dad admitted as we settled into our seats. There were moments when I thought our family might never recover. We're not fully recovered, I pointed out. But we're trying. That's something. Bethany, noticeably more subdued than her former self and dressed simply without designer labels, smiled tentatively. I've been working with my therapist on identifying triggers for my shopping addiction. Social media was a big one. I've deleted most of my accounts. Really? I couldn't hide my surprise. Bethany's Instagram had been practically her second identity. She nodded. It was hard at first. I kept worrying about what people would think, if they'd forget about me. But it's been freeing. I'm learning to define myself by who I am, not what I own or how I appear online. Mom reached across the table and squeezed my hand. We've all been doing a lot of reflection. I've realized how much I contributed to the problem by playing favorites and making excuses. I can't change the past, but I'm committed to doing better. The conversation flowed more easily than I expected, touching on difficult topics but also finding moments of connection that reminded me why family relationships, despite their complexity, are worth fighting for. As we prepared to leave the restaurant, Bethany hung back, waiting until our parents had stepped outside before turning to me. I know things will never be exactly the same between us, she said quietly. And maybe that's okay. The old pattern wasn't healthy. But I hope someday you can trust me again. Even if it's different than before. I considered her words carefully. Trust is earned through consistent actions over time, I finally replied. I'm open to seeing where this goes. But I need you to understand that it will take a while. I understand, she nodded. Thank you for even being willing to try. Some people wouldn't be. As we joined our parents outside, I reflected on how a single transaction, $6.218 on a stolen credit card, had exposed years of dysfunctional family dynamics, hidden resentments, and unspoken truths. The money hadn't really broken our family. It had simply revealed the cracks that were already there. The healing process wasn't neat or linear. There were setbacks, difficult conversations, and moments when old patterns threatened to reassert themselves. But there was also a new foundation of honesty that gave me hope for the future. I learned that true family strength isn't about maintaining a perfect image or avoiding conflict at all costs. It's about having the courage to face difficult truths together, to hold each other accountable with compassion, and to choose growth over comfortable denial. The betrayal that shattered my family also created an opportunity to rebuild something more authentic, something based on who we really are, not who we pretend to be. And while that process is ongoing and imperfect, I've found a kind of peace in knowing that truth, however painful, is the only solid ground on which to build lasting relationships. Have you ever experienced a moment when a single event revealed deeper truths about your relationships? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments. If this resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe to the channel for more real-life stories about family, trust, and personal growth. Remember that sometimes the most painful experiences can lead to the most meaningful transformations. Thank you for listening to my story, and I wish you strength and clarity in your own family journey.